We're going to speak to a number of our reporters, crisscrossing the country, of course, trying to find out what the latest is there and zoom in a bit on what some of the challenges are there and which political parties, of course, are part of those that would be vying to take over those areas. So the Breede Valley municipality meanders along the N1 north of Cape Town. It includes the towns of Worcester, De Doorns, Touwsrivier and Rossenville. So agriculture is the main industry there, with most of the towns in a rural setting in that particular part. The SABC having travelled to this area to find out what residents think about tomorrow's election. So most say they feel out of touch with the local leadership there. Service delivery and survival of these small towns, quite critical issues that will determine where they make their crosses. We'll cross very shortly to Mariska Botha and a colleague, camera colleague, Mark Muhlenberg. They'll join us very shortly. But first, let's just take a look at that particular area, the Breede Valley area. Take a look here. What happened in the municipal election there in 2016? You'll have a look here. You'll see. Then you had about 3,339 number of registered voters there, and 73.7% of the registered voters casting their vote there. Voters by party, 93% for the Democratic Alliance, you will see there, with 3% for the Freedom Front, plus the ANC 1%, the ACDP amongst those parties with 0%, the EFF 0% as well, the UDM in that particular area. Mariska, we'll bring you in now. Very good evening to you. Thanks indeed for joining us. So the Breede Valley municipality is run by the Democratic Alliance, but there are other parties like the ANC dominating wards there. What's up for grabs there?
You're absolutely right there, Chriselda. As you mentioned there, those stats and figures that you read out there, absolutely correct. I just want to point out to you where we are. We chose this setting to show you it's a beautiful sunset here out here tonight. It is a rural setting, as you explained. It's a vast stretch of over 100 kilometers that makes up the Breede Valley municipality. And as the sun sets over South Africa tonight, people are gearing up to go cast their votes tomorrow. And what we've heard from people on the ground is exactly what you said there. The DA runs the municipality in this area, but in certain wards you'll find that the ANC councillors are represented there, and especially for people in De Doorns, it's a great problem. We had people there that were absolutely irate, saying there that because the municipality is run by the DA and the ward councillors are ANC, they feel nothing gets done. They talk about road infrastructure that's terrible, and they say that nobody listens to their complaints. So it's certainly something that plays on people's mind, and I think people must be aware that people across the country are very well informed what happens in their municipalities and who exactly is in charge, because that's the message that we got on the ground from people, is that they're not happy with that situation where one party runs the municipality and the rest is run on ward level by another party.
Mariska, thank you very much indeed. In Worcester, staying up quite late into the evening. Thank you very much indeed. One of the SABC News reporters out there in those communities. So the community of Seaview Village in Mbizana in the Eastern Cape, that's where we're going next, facing various issues ranging from water and sanitation to crime and drug abuse. So young people basically terrorizing that community, we understand. We'll speak to Ekurhuleni very shortly. He is in the Winnie Madikizela Mandela municipality. Let's take a look at the area where he is in Mbizana, Ward 23. In the last municipal election, you would have seen there the number of registered voters there. Take a look, 4,730. 61.2% of the registered voters casting their votes in 2016. The ANC dominating there at 84%, with the Democratic Alliance at 8% and the EFF at 4% as well. Many of these political parties, of course, hoping to do much better than they did in the local government election in 2016. So Nkululeko will bring you in now. Very good evening to you. There seems to be in that particular area a rise in new political parties and independent candidates there. Does this in any way indicate that perhaps residents there are fed up with who's been governing there? Ruleko, very good evening to you. It's Chriselda. Are you able to hear me? All right, we don't seem to be able to hear Nkululeko Nyembezi at this particular point. I'm really hoping that we will be able to touch base with him. While our team tries to get hold of him, let's take a look at this area where he is. Of course, I did indicate the municipal election in 2016 there, 4,730, with 61% of the vote there. From those who had basically registered to vote. If you look at the population by age range, we're talking about 0 to 9. Okay, let's go to Nkululeko Nyembezi. Nkululeko, a very good evening to you. I'm hoping you can hear me. There seems to be a general rise there in new political parties as well as independent candidates. Is this an indication of the feeling of the electorate in that area? Nkululeko Nyembezi, can you hear me? Then in Mbizana, can you hear me? It's Chriselda in Johannesburg.
Okay, all right.
All right, we seem to be having a bit of a problem getting hold of Nkululeko there. Nkululeko, are you able to hear me now?
You can hear me where I'm live, where I'm not. But where I am right now, I am at Seaview Village, where the community are protesting. But what I can say is that the community are angry about a high rate of crime. They are saying that vigilantism here is high and crime is very high, and drug abuse is on the high rate. So they want the government to make sure that at least they try by all means to curb what is going on here. But what I can say when it comes to independent candidates, this municipality under Mbizana, or what you call Mandela, is one of the highly contested municipality, whereby there are 10 candidates that are contesting 10 wards. And then also there are also newly formed political organizations that will be contesting these local government elections. All of them, they want to make sure that at least they have their share from the wards. But what I can say that the reason for this high number of independent candidates, because there has been a high number of BGM disruptions and a high level of factionalism within political parties, and some of them, they are complaining about service delivery, of course. So they want to make sure that at least come tomorrow, they will decide who to lead them. And some of the people from the communities, they decided to just go solo. That is why you can see in the background here, people are complaining, people, they want change, and then they are saying that they have been victims of crime in this village and they can't sleep. People, especially men, they are going around throughout the night making sure that they safeguard their families, because they are being attacked by the so-called Amapara. And Amapara, they do drugs, they do everything that you can think of. As a result, this week, a 9-year-old child was just killed in a very brutal fashion by the so-called Amapara. So this community now, they want to see justice be done. They want to see change. They want to see government taking action about what is going on here. And then also, you will also remember that in 2006, in this community, there were people that were brutally killed, most especially women. They were just, they had their wombs taken away by the thugs. So now they don't want that to continue in this village. I'm not sure whether I'm still alive, but let me go back to you at studio.
All right, we really appreciate you continuing, despite the fact that you can't hear us. Nkululeko Nyembezi in Mbizana there. You can see the community probably going to stay up all night to cast their votes tomorrow. Quite a hive of activity there. So let's move to the next one. 50 political parties and 53 independent candidates will battle for the votes in Ethekwini Metro. The record number of candidates are fighting 222 seats in the council. The Metro has the second largest budget in the country of 52.3 billion. trillion rand. All the big political parties desperately wanting to control there. Many analysts believe the governing ANC won't get the landslide victory that it predicts. Let's zoom in to Ethekwini now before we go to our reporter, Bongani Gema. Let's take a look at Ethekwini. Quite interesting. And I think it was during 2016 when you had the Ethekwini Metro, which is declared with about 70% of the votes, according to the CSIR. That had taken quite some time. Have a look there. 16 in this particular area, 16,424. The ANC voters by party, 60% for the ANC there. The Democratic Alliance, let's take a look at 20% there. We'll move back to that in just a short while. Let's join our colleague now in that particular area, Bongani Gema. Bongani, a very good evening to you. So the battle for the Ethekwini Metro is on. A number of political parties certainly want to get their hands on that second biggest budget in the country.
Well, good evening, Chriselda, to you, and good evening to our SABC viewers. Chriselda, I was struggling a bit to hear you there, but in this city, in Ethekwini municipality, the political dynamics are certainly expected to change in this after this election. As you mentioned in your intro, Chriselda, this city is hotly contested. If you remember, in 2011, the ANC won 61% of the votes. In 2016, it got 56, which shows you that the ANC is really starting to lose power in this city. We don't know what's going to happen after these elections, but during the day I spoke with a political analyst, Precious Lukayen, was telling me that they are predicting that the ANC is going to continue on that trail of losing support, not really because of the many political parties that are contesting, that will play a role, but also because the ANC is its own worst enemy with the internal squabbles happening within the party. They are unable really to agree on certain issues, key issues that will really cause the party to lose some votes. They are saying that the party will not get the landslide victory that they have been predicting since they started their campaigns. We also come to a Democratic Alliance, which is a party that people are seeing as the party that's really getting ground in this city. But then we saw what happened in Phoenix with the controversial bid polls. Political analysts saying that the DA is really scoring its own goals, saying that will cost them in these upcoming elections. We also have the IFP. That is the party that analysts are saying is going to improve in this city. But really, we don't know. We'll see after the results have been released. But really, this city is really hotly contested. The ANC occupies 126 seats, making them the occupants of this very building that you see behind me, the Durban City Hall, Chriselda.
Bongani, thank you very much indeed. Staying up late at night in the Ethekwini Metro. Of course, one of the metros that is certainly very closely to be watched in this election. Let's come to Ekurhuleni now. The city of Ekurhuleni will be one of the metros to watch during these elections, just very much like Nelson Mandela Bay and others. The ANC managed to retain control of the metro there through a coalition with smaller parties. So electricity, water supply, some of the issues that are most likely to determine who will run the city for the next 5 years. Let's zoom into a particular ward where SABC News reporter Mahlako Komani is. That is Ward 89 in Ekurhuleni. That's where she is. We'll speak to her just in a few moments. You will see in that ward, Ward 89, 13,110 people had registered to vote in that area. I think 51.2% of those registered voters had basically cast their ballots there. The ANC 50% in that particular ward, EFF 31%, the DA 16%, and you had the AIC at 1%, the ACDP also at 1%, and the other political parties are basically at 0% there. Mahlako Komani, a very good evening to you. Thanks indeed for your time. So I guess, with the ANC having governed that particular area, having gotten into coalitions with these smaller political parties, certainly the ANC would probably want to do better there.
Yes, good evening to you, Chriselda. Quite correct that the ANC does hope to do better here in Ekurhuleni. You'd remember that, as you correctly said, that this ward was retained, this city was retained by the ANC through a coalition with the smaller parties, but they are hoping to push this up to about 54%, hoping that they won't have to be looking towards, the smaller parties to ensure that they'll continue to govern, the city of Ekurhuleni. But also quite interestingly, one of the smaller parties within that coalition is the AIC. We know that it's been quite fairly stable as opposed to other metros. The coalition that has happened here in the city of Ekurhuleni over the last 5 years or so, we haven't seen much problems there as you would have seen in other cities like your Johannesburg and Nelson Mandela Bay. But here it's been rather stable. In terms of corruption, the only scandals that we know that have come out of here was that of the chemical toilets that the city was accused of spending over close to R1 billion that it had spent here. That will also be, I suppose, an issue that a lot of people, particularly in this area of Ivory Park, one of the beneficiaries of those chemical toilets, will be looking towards. In this particular area that we are right now, there's about 4,000 people alone that have registered to vote at the Ivory Park Secondary School. It seems like they will also be out there in terms of the special votes. They've had a fairly successful weekend in terms of getting special votes coming in, but it is going to be a city that will most likely fall back to the ANC. But it remains to be seen if what they have done as the African National Congress over the last 5 years will be enough to not only keep them at 50%, but to increase their proportional representation in legislature.
Matlako Komani, we appreciate your time this evening. Of course, you'll be monitoring the election from that area tomorrow. SABC News reporters out on the ground, most of them already deployed to the various areas around the country. Stay tuned to SABC News for comprehensive coverage of tomorrow's election.